says he has all the answers, that he can, and he is the only one that can protect women. I know my panelists today have a lot to say about that. And Georgia Governor Brian Kemp withdrew his support yesterday from North Carolina's Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, who was linked in a CNN report of saying a series of inflammatory statements like that slavery was a good thing and that he wished slavery was still around because he would own some slaves. Now, the Georgia's governor statement came after the Atlanta Journal-Constitution obtained photographs of Kemp speaking at an August fundraiser in North Carolina for Lieutenant Governor Robinson, the Republican nominee for governor. Now, prominent Republicans like J.D. Vance, Lindsey Graham, and Tom Cotton all refused to disavow Mark Robinson, despite him calling himself a Black Nazi. And Republican Senate candidate for Ohio, Bernie Moreno, who's running against the very popular Democratic incumbent Sherrod Brown, was caught on camera at a campaign stop making the argument that a lot of suburban women are single-issue voters who he says only care about abortion rights. And then he went on to say these women are crazy for taking this position, especially, he says, women over 50, for whom he argues reproductive rights are not even an issue. All right. And Vice President Harris gets a stunning endorsement from a group that normally backs Donald Trump. That is the Police Leaders for Community Safety. This police group, law enforcement agency group, is all in for VP Harris. The endorsement comes after the nation's oldest and most influential law enforcement lobbies the National Fraternal Order of Police backed Donald Trump earlier this month. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. I am so delighted to be joined in this hour by two powerhouse female contributors, Sharon Reed. She's an Emmy award-winning journalist and TV host for In the Black Network, and Dr. Niambi Carter, who is an author and professor at the University of Maryland. I'm sure they have a whole lot to say about Donald Trump's rant, calling us women depressed, anxious, unhealthy, and then saying that he is the protector that we've all been waiting for. And then this Senate candidate in Ohio saying women over 50, why should we care about abortion? Basically saying our child bearing days are over and we are stupid. I mean, basically called us stupid because we're not supporting him and his anti-abortion agenda. I can't wait to see what Sharon and Dr. Carter have to say about these two men who think they know a whole lot about women. And in hour two, that's the hour where we go deeper, where we dig behind those headlines and bring you those stories that people are talking about. Well, Tyre Nichols, as everyone will remember, was beaten badly to death by 5 police officers. They happen to be African-American. Tyre Nichols happens to be African-American. And the story of the trial of these officers has gotten very, very little national media attention. In fact, you have to look for stories about this trial, but it's been going on now for almost 2 weeks. And 2 of the officers involved in that beating took plea deals and have become witnesses for the prosecution. Well, one of those former police officers who took a plea deal testified today in that trial, and he had to break down and cry himself just watching the videotape of him and his then former officers beating Tyre Nichols to death. I don't know if we've ever had a trial of police officers where a former officer that was involved in the beating comes into a courtroom and breaks down in tears like a baby and weeps, apologizes to the family, and expresses the most extreme form of remorse you've ever wanted to hear. So in hour two, we're going to talk about this trial because, like I said, it deserves to get a lot more national attention, and it is not. But it's a reminder that race doesn't always matter in these situations, that there are African-American and other officers of color that often violate the constitutional rights of citizens, as these 5 former officers did in the case of Tyre Nichols. So Sharon Reed is going to stick around and talk about how this is being reported on from a journalistic standpoint. And I'll bring on one of my legal experts to help us understand why these 3 officers think that they have a chance of getting off in this case, given all of the substantial videotape, the audio tape, the body cams, and now these 2 officers who are testifying against them. So if you wondered what happened to those officers that brutally beat Tyree Nichols, we've got a lot of information. We can give you that. We will give you that information, update you on that trial and what's happening in that trial in hour 2. So make sure you stick around. Well, here's what I'm thinking about in real time before I bring on Sharon and Dr. Carter. Donald Trump, I mean, he is so desperate. He is desperate, desperate, desperate. He is out on the campaign trail saying the most ridiculous statements, like the one we're going to talk a whole lot about in terms of being a protector for women. But he's also making a lot of promises about the economy as he's trying to win over not only, his MAGA base, apparently trying to appeal to independents, working class people. So he's promised everything from free in vitro fertilization treatments for women. So as he tells us we're depressed, sad, anxious, unhealthy, he's offering us free in vitro fertilization. No federal income tax on tips. A lot of folks think he's doing that to target workers in Nevada. The hospitality industry is huge there, and that's a must-win state for him. So he went into Nevada and said no federal income tax on tips, tax-free overtime pay too, he's promising. So a lot of folks think he's doing that for union workers and other workers who often are compensated for overtime. So he's saying to workers, don't worry, if you work past an 8-hour day and you have to get overtime, or you're working overtime hours, there won't be any federal income taxes to pay on that overtime. He's also saying no income tax on your Social Security benefits. Obviously, he's trying to talk to seniors, folks who are drawing Social Security or who may draw Social Security over the next 4 years. Now, already, so let's keep a tab here. In vitro fertilization free for women. No tax on tips. That's for hospitality workers. No tax on overtime. That's for hourly wage workers. No tax on Social Security benefits. That's for seniors. And today he went even further. He promised that he will cap credit card interest rates at around 10%. Now, you can imagine the kind of hysteria that sent through big credit card companies, big banks, places like Chase, Bank of America, all of these banks that offer credit cards that often charge 17%, 20%, some even above 20% in interest charges when you pay over time. You know, that charge you make for $100 that grows because you're only paying $10 a month on it, and somehow that $100 grows to $300. Well, under Donald Trump's new economic plan, he says that won't happen anymore. Only 10%. Now, a lot of economists are, skeptical of these promises, because they know, like we all know, Trump has a history of lying, and we know he'll say or do anything to get elected. And all of these promises, many of these things, he doesn't even have the power to do on his own. These would have to be acts of Congress, congressional acts. And then we get into this thorny little thing called how do you pay for all of these things? Of course, right? Who's going to pay for them? This is the same president that cut taxes for the wealthy and has always been more concerned about ensuring that his billionaire friends make more money than he is about ensuring that middle class and working class people have a fair shot in this country. So this notion that he is going to, cap credit card rates at 10% and give away, these free fertility treatments for women. This is the same guy that reversed Roe v. Wade, brags about appointing justices to reverse Roe v. Wade. All of a sudden now wants to help women with in vitro fertilization, because we know the anti-abortion folks also are anti-in vitro fertilization. So that would be completely inconsistent with his base and where his base is. And again, this credit card, the average interest rates on credit cards are around 20%. I said some cards charge as much as 20 plus, and I'm reminded that some charge even up to 36% interest rates when you carry a balance. Clearly outrageous. Clearly something needs to be done about it. But no details from Donald Trump. None whatsoever. Remember, he's going to do something about Obamacare, get rid of Obamacare. Doesn't have a plan yet. He told us on the debate stage he has a concept, and he'll give us the details later. That's his go-to when he doesn't have anything to say. He always says, I'll get you the details later, and he never, ever, ever gets us the details. So likewise, on this 10% credit card interest rate cap, no details. No details from Donald Trump, no details from his team, no details from his campaign staff. And again, his staff, just a lot of platitudes about this is to provide temporary and immediate relief for hardworking Americans who are struggling to make ends meet. So now Trump is really trying to lean into this. I'm the president for the everyday man, and I'm going to be out there fighting to make sure you have more money in your pocket. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Donald Trump has proven himself incapable of ever telling the American people anything that's true. And he's incapable of keeping any promises that he makes to the American people. Remember that wall that he was going to build that Mexico was going to pay for? Never happened. Wall not built, at least not an entire wall, and definitely no part of it ever paid for by Mexico. So more empty promises from Donald Trump. You cannot buy your way into the White House. You cannot buy votes. You cannot buy support from the American people. We know who you are. You've shown us who you are, and we are going to show you who we are on November 5th. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Moments like hearing my cat purr good morning mean a lot to me. But after being diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, or MBC, which is breast cancer that is spread to other parts of the body, they mean even more. I take Ibrance, palbociclib.
Ibrance 125 milligram tablets with an aromatase inhibitor is for adults with HR-positive, HER2-negative MBC as the first hormonal-based therapy. Ask your doctor about Ibrance and visit Ibrance.com. Ibrance may cause low white blood cell counts that may lead to serious infections. Ibrance may cause severe inflammation of the lungs. Both of these can lead to death. Tell your doctor right away if you have new or worsening symptoms, including trouble breathing, shortness of breath, cough, or chest pain. Before taking Ibrance, tell your doctor if you have fever, chills, or other signs of infection, liver or kidney problems, are or plan to become pregnant, or are breastfeeding. Common side effects include low red blood cell and low platelet counts, infections, tiredness, nausea, sore mouth, abnormalities in liver blood tests, diarrhea, hair thinning or loss, vomiting, rash, and loss of appetite.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Single Moms Planet is a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting under-resourced single mom business owners and working mothers nationwide. Single Moms Planet offers comprehensive programs of financial literacy, business development, mentorship, and entrepreneurial training. They provide education, accountability, and hope. Single Moms Planet was founded by model, TV personality, and producer Nefertiri Plessy. Nefertiri felt firsthand the challenges that face single moms as she was raised by a working single mother. She learned that the most disadvantaged group in the United States are single mom families. According to the U.S. Census, 30% live under the poverty line. So she decided to do something about it, along with co-founder Cole Patterson. Their goal is to end the poverty cycle in single mother households through education, opportunity, and networking, providing family and child enrichment programs for under-resourced single parent families. Single Moms Planet serves over 10,000 single moms and their children each year. Studies show that business development and financial literacy provide a positive environment for children and families, exposing them to new possibilities and opportunities. To attend one of their fun events, make a donation, or get more information, or if you need help as a single mom, please visit singlemomsplanet.org. That's singlemomsplanet.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Speaking at a rally in Pennsylvania on Monday night, Trump said, he rehashed, first of all, an argument he made in all caps on Truth Social post. He made this post last week, claiming that women are poorer, less healthy, and more stressed and depressed and unhappy than they were 4 years ago. Then he went on to say, I will fix all of that and fast. And at long last, this nation, our national nightmare will end. He says it will end. We've got to end this national nightmare because I am your protector. I want to be your protector. All right, Sharon. He said this with a straight face at a rally. He was really serious. Help us unpack what Donald Trump is talking about when he says he's going to be our protector and he's going to end this nightmare and end it fast.
He says a lot of things with a straight face, including inviting Hannibal Lecter over for dinner, I believe. He says a lot of things like everybody wanted this for the states to deal with the abortion issue once and for all. That's a lie too. I think it's just not within me to decipher what this being is thinking, because he's all over the place. He's in decline, and he has what I believe is a diagnosable, several probably mental health issue, and perhaps other things that are affecting this 78-year-old man's mental capacity, Areva. Okay, I don't know how to explain what this fool is talking about. And I can call him that because by definition, if you look up fool, it probably now would have to include his picture. He's not our protector. He is our punisher. He's someone that has made life difficult for so many. It began with COVID. I mean, you mentioned Hannibal. I mentioned Hannibal Lecter, a serial killer, a fictional one, right? More people died of COVID because this man lied, actively lied to us. That was a choice, and instructed his administration to do that, and perhaps held Fauci in the basement of the White House because he wanted to tell the truth. I don't know what he means by protect us. He has raped, according to a judge, and sexually assaulted women. So it's a little silly, okay? Is the fox going to protect the hen house? Okay. Maybe some people will fall for it, just like this MAGA loyal base.
Yeah, I think, Dr. Carter, one thing, Trump is responding to these poll numbers that show Kamala Harris may be up as many as 21% with female voters. At the same rally, he says, I always thought women liked me. I never thought I had a problem. But the fake news keeps saying women don't like me. I don't believe it. And the reason I'm saying it with all of this, dripping sarcasm is because it is so comical. It's hard to take this stuff seriously, but the press writes about it as if this is serious.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the problem. I think some in the media have to be held to account for their unwillingness to call Donald Trump, on his stuff. I mean, we have normalized lying and called it misinformation. It's not, it's lying, or disinformation, I should say. And then I think the other part of this is like, look, Donald Trump has gotten by because he was wealthy, and a lot of people let him get away with a lot of things. A lot of people have let him be outrageous. A lot of people have let him be downright dangerous because it suited them. And so I believe him when he says he's confused, because when we look at what happened in 2016, white women did turn out in droves for Donald Trump. And so it was like, what woman problem do I have? Because the women that I want to show up to the polls are showing up for me. I think the problem that he didn't anticipate was that some of those same women would defect when he started coming for reproductive rights. And that's when they said, well, maybe this is a bridge too far, because they were okay with his infidelities. They were okay with him grabbing women by their genitals. They were okay with lots of things until his nastiness and his behavior looked like it was going to have real consequences for their lives and the lives of the women and the other people in their lives that they care about. And I'm not saying politics means you have to be altruistic, but I am not surprised that Donald Trump thinks that women like him. I mean, lots of them show up at his rallies still and tell him that he's great and he's great for the country and he's great looking and all the other things that they probably tell him to, stroke his ego.
Well, you're right about that. And so maybe he's not so off base, Sharon. Ohio, Bernie Moreno, though, who's running for that Senate seat against Sherrod Brown, it does seem, though, like these men, Republican men, are shocked that the impact on Roe v. Wade is carrying as much weight as it is, because he's caught on a mic saying, why are these suburban women worried about abortion? Because they're all 50 and old and can't have kids anyhow. So I don't think they anticipated that this was going to be the issue that it is, and that it could imperil their chances of winning.
Well, doesn't that sound dumb? We have daughters and friends, and some of us are still childbearing. Doesn't that sound dumb and daft and out of touch with reality? Doesn't that sound like you don't listen to women in your life, that instead you decide what's best for their womb? You decide what women want and what women don't want. It's Looney Tunes. And the fact that they are surprised gives me great pause. People like that who are living in a vacuum of white privilege, white male privilege, should never ascend to power. And I know that's by definition white male privilege where they will be, but they shouldn't be there. They don't even have, this is a common sense issue. What you just posed to me is common sense. You're surprised?
They
the polling even told them that. Yes.
What's
ridiculous.
Even more bizarre is that this guy running for Senate says these women are single issue voters. Well, you and Donald Trump are in the position you're in to even be in a race because single issue voters, and that's the single issue of being anti-abortion.
Right.
It's so stupid. Like,
yeah.
Hello, those single issue voters are the reason that we have Donald Trump as our former president, because they were counting on him to do what he did around Roe v. Wade, which is overturn Roe v. Wade. They were going to hold their noses, close their eyes, do everything else they needed to do, not to think about him, to vote on that single issue. And now all of a sudden, the single issue is choice, and they cannot understand why you're voting on choice. We can't make this up. We are not making this up. What are we going for? We got to talk about Georgia's governor saying Mark Robinson is a bridge too far for him. And Kamala Harris picking up an unusual endorsement of police officers. Well, may not be that unusual. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
The right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Independent Senator Joe Manchin will not endorse Vice President Harris. This comes after Harris's promise to gut the chamber's filibuster rule to pass a bill codifying abortion rights. The West Virginia independent senator told CNN that he will not back her as a presidential candidate over the move. He said this week, quote, shame on her, end quote, adding that, quote, she knows the filibuster is the holy grail of democracy, end quote. San Diego, California is hosting events, giveaways, and readings to celebrate National Banned Book Week. According to the American Library Association's Office for Intellectual Freedom, more than 4,000 book titles were targeted for censorship nationwide in 2023 alone, primarily those written by LGBTQ+ authors or people of color. San Diego County Supervisor Tara Lawson-Reamer says the county is promoting the censorship week at all county libraries. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
In Laguna Hills, watch for an accident blocking the left lane of the 5 North at El Toro Road. Stop traffic from La Paz involving a motorcyclist. The 210 West at Highway 134 in Pasadena, watch for an accident on the right shoulder, causing a 15-minute backup from Sierra Madre Villa Avenue, Madre Street interchange. 22 West before the City Drive in Orange, an accident blocks the second lane from the left, and heavy traffic is coming from the 5 Highway 57 interchange. Back in Calabasas, 101 South after Valley Circle Boulevard, Mulholland Drive interchange. A 15-minute backup still runs heavy from Lost Hills Road as an accident remains in the center divide.
Bank of America has powerful digital solutions for local and global businesses, so you can make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America N.A. Copyright 2024.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Magic Johnson, a part owner of the NFL Washington Commanders, has to be feeling pretty good today about his team. The Commanders are 2-1 and tied for first place with Philadelphia in the NFC East after beating Cincinnati Monday night. Here's a stat Magic should really be happy with. The Commanders, who were 4-13 last year and finished the season with an 8-game losing streak, have gone 2 straight games this season without having to punt. Monday night and last week against the New York Giants. Magic's team was also part of a very rare milestone Monday night. For the first time in 84 years, the NFL had a game where both teams committed no turnovers and had no punts. The Commanders and Cincinnati had a combined 15 possessions. Fans and TV viewers were treated to some pretty good football. Magic's first investment with an NFL franchise is already generating some good PR. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit ca-smp-volunteer.org.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend, Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Environmental justice is racial justice.
Environmental justice is social justice.
This is KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Sharon Reed, an Emmy Award-winning journalist and host, is joining me, as well as Dr. Niambi Carter. She is an author and professor at the University of Maryland. And in hour two, we're going to be talking about the Tyre Nichols trial. Hasn't gotten a lot of media attention, but 5 African-American officers were charged with the brutal beating death of Tyre Nichols. This is the federal trial involving these officers. They also will still have to stand trial at the state level for second-degree murder charges. But something happened today in the courtroom that doesn't typically happen during the trial of police officers. And that is one of the former police officers that pled guilty, took the witness stand. So we're going to talk about what happened with the testimony of that officer on the witness stand today. Sharon Reed is going to stick around because there are issues in terms of how the media is and is not covering the story that we're going to talk about, as well as veteran prosecutor Bobby Grace is going to join us to help us understand what the prosecution has to do in order to get guilty verdicts with respect to the 3 officers. And why would these officers even risk proceeding to trial given the mountain of evidence against them? So all that coming up in hour 2. But Sharon, I want to ask you this. You live in Georgia. Your governor, Kemp, withdrew his support for North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, who's running for governor of the state of North Carolina. I don't know if he did it after those posts came out that were made on a pornographic website, or after the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, a newspaper in your state, had photographs and published photographs of Brian Kemp speaking at a fundraiser for Mark Robinson in August. So maybe Kemp was shamed by those photographs. Tell us what's happening with your governor and his endorsement and not endorsement of Mark Robinson.
Well, I think we have to be careful with the word shame because it, of course, post-Trump era took on new meaning. I don't know that there is much shame. And other than being freaky deaky and a self-hater by referring to himself allegedly as a Black Nazi, I don't know why Brian Kemp would distance himself. After all, even though Donald Trump said some very nasty things about the Georgia First Lady, his wife, he's still supporting him. And he's been supporting him. He's convicted of raping, and he's still, Brian Kemp, supporting Donald Trump. January 6th, treasonous domestic terrorism that many believe, and the evidence shows that Donald Trump did spur on. And Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, is still supporting him. So I would venture a guess, but again, you're asking me to get into the mind of people who seem to go to church. I know Brian Kemp does every Sunday, but he lacks integrity. And I don't believe that that's a shocking thing. We all know people who behave one way Monday through Saturday and somewhere else on Sunday. But this is where we're at. Okay. Mark Robinson was scum before they discovered some porn site. And like I said, if he wants to get freaky and enjoy certain kind of porn, even though he trashes transgender people, good for him. Stay out of my bedroom, where I can assure you it's a lot less interesting. Okay. Nothing going on there but sleep. So I don't know why Brian Kemp is suddenly said it's too much for him, because he's still supporting the number one too much guy, Donald Trump.
But I'm just wondering, Sharon, is this some calculation on Kemp's part that Republicans in Georgia, that he might pay a price with his own base? Because Kemp obviously still supports Donald Trump, but we know Kemp and Trump have sparred. They're not friends. We know that. As you say, he's made all kinds of disparaging remarks about Kemp's wife. They've battled over those 11,000 votes that Trump wanted to find in Georgia. So they're friends is nowhere, shouldn't be used anywhere in terms of describing their relationship. But I'm just wondering, do you think Kemp is worried about his own standing in Georgia if he is attached to Mark Robinson? Then do you remember, did he support Herschel Walker? Because, Herschel Walker is a candidate similar to a Mark Robinson.
Well, he didn't flat out denounce Herschel Walker, but he wouldn't really campaign for him. It was very lackluster. And I think the first thing that Herschel and Mark Robinson have in common is that they are big Black men. And so while Brian Kemp has a very strong hold over his Republican Party and the white men who run it, this is something different. To be attached to this stereotypically oversexed, overly aggressive Black man maybe that is something that he says, I got to cut ties right now. Whereas Trump, who has been convicted of all the goods, well, we'll just keep riding that out because one day Brian Kemp wants to be president of the United States.
Okay. Dr. Carter, J.D. Vance, Lindsey Graham, Tom Cotton, other prominent Republicans, they refuse to disavow Mark Robinson, despite his comments, even calling himself a black Nazi. How might that play with the Jewish base of Republicans?
Well, I mean, I think that's going to be for Jewish Republicans to ask themselves. I mean, I think it's probably going to mean a lot of people stay home. I think to Sharon's earlier point, what Mark Robinson wanted to do on those, chat boards or whatever is his business. The problem is the hypocrisy of that person who sits there and demonizes trans people, comes after other people for their private lives and the things that they might be interested in sexually or just for existing, right? The very bodies that he alleged to have wanted to see in the pornography that he wanted to consume are the very same bodies he wants to say don't have a right to exist, whose humanity should not be affirmed or recognized. So I think that's what's happening. But that Black Nazi comment, I think, is not just going to resonate with Jewish voters. I think it's going to resonate with Black conservative voters. There are many of them in North Carolina. It's going to resonate with probably white voters who are like, hey, I have a lot of money. I like Republican politics, but this might be a bridge too far. It's just distasteful to say you want to bring back something like enslavement and that you would own slaves. I don't know how he thinks that's going to work. I don't know why he thinks he wouldn't be one of the slaves. But this comes back to that question, right? I mean, there's something we've been talking about for the last few months. The pain is the point, because people are okay with inflicting harm on other people so long as it's the bad people, the right people get hurt. I'm okay with that. And so the people like Mark Robinson, who could convince himself that he would, in some imagined universe, be the Black person who owns other Black people, who can brutalize and take another person's humanity, is the person who is vying for office, who wants to be the governor, the chief executive of the state of North Carolina, where he actually could inflict real harms and dangers. And we have to ask ourselves, what happens when we keep walking away from the things that we say we believe in? And this isn't just about Republicans. It's about all of us, right? It's about voters. We have to want better and demand better. You can be conservative, but at some point we have to say, the quest for power just isn't worth what it's going to cost me ethically and morally to continue to support people like a Mark Robinson, who would say these things allegedly, right? In a chat board or in other places. I mean, the things that he says publicly are outrageous, inflammatory, dangerous, and racist. And so why you want that man to be in charge of not just your state? I mean, when you think about the educational institutions that are premier in that state that he could run into the ground, when you think about the public health infrastructure of that state, which is doing really good work in rural and Black and poor communities around HIV/AIDS care, that he could run into the ground, the stakes are too high. So we have to start wanting more and looking for more, not just power. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, or a person like Mark Robinson had no business on that stage. And this is where the state Republican Party is held to account, because he should have never made it out of a primary. He shouldn't even got on a ballot. He shouldn't be your lieutenant governor. That man wouldn't be my dog catcher.
Yeah, no, he's pretty disgusting. And Republicans, they just keep repeating the same playbook, or using the same playbook, get these extremists through their primary system that makes it difficult to get a reasonable candidate through, and then get to the general and have them implode the way we saw Herschel Walker, now Mark Robinson. He's behind, some say more than 10 points in North Carolina. No chance of him winning, barring some miracle. And Trump, who called him Martin Luther King on steroids, will not let him appear with him at a rally, will not let him appear with him at fundraisers. I mean, Trump is done with him and has probably said, don't let the man come anywhere near me, which is typical Trump, right? Stand by you until it's harmful to him. When we come forward, I want to talk about this Texas fight. Ted Cruz, who has been quiet in some ways, is in a big fight for his life in this this race for the Senate against this Democrat who is a former football player, very different kind of athlete than Herschel Walker was. And we might see an upset for the first time involving Ted Cruz with Colin Allred. When we come forward and talk about what's happening in Texas, is it the new purple state? Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelenos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV. October 2nd is California Clean Air Day. Go Metro for free and help cut down on pollution and traffic. It's our way of thanking you because every ride makes a difference. Let's clear the air together. Ready to go right now? Head to metro.net. Hey, LA residents, it's planting season and the perfect time to get shade trees growing around your home. LADWP and City Plants are giving every resident up to 7 free trees. That's right, 7 free trees delivered right to your door. Trees are great for the environment, help improve air quality, and can help you save on your bill when you use less air conditioning to stay cool indoors. Learn more at ladwp.com/free trees. That's ladwp.com/free trees.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit lafla.org. lafla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Beto O'Rourke almost beat Ted Cruz in 2018 for a U.S. Senate seat in Texas. And now Colin Allred, former NFL player, attorney, U.S. congressperson from the state of Texas, is in a dead heat with Ted Cruz. Too close for comfort for Ted Cruz. He's sounding the alarm for Republicans to make sure they understand that his race is a toss-up at this point. But Colin Allred is got a challenge ahead of him. We know Texas has predominantly been a ruby red state, even though Beto O'Rourke got pretty close to Ted Cruz. I'm surprised, though, Sharon, some of the articles talk about Black voters in Texas, in Houston, in Dallas, that you think would be excited about electing a candidate like Colin Allred, former NFL player, handsome, young guy, smart, articulate, nothing like Mark Robinson, Herschel Walker, any of those candidates. But folks are still saying, look, I'm not happy with the Democrats. I don't care about abortion. I don't care about immigration. I care about, kind of more bread and butter issues, my bill at the grocery store. But do you think Black voters are going to miss an opportunity to vote for Colin Allred and let Ted Cruz win again? The Ted Cruz that left them and went to Cancun? during one of the worst crises in the state of Texas?
It's a toss-up. I will say that I'm cautious about polls and turnout and whatever else, early voting. I know Texas loves to try to suppress the vote as well, but oppression is a hell of a thing. And so I do think that sometimes we're not a monolithic community, but we do sit in a cesspool of this is what we're always used to. And so let's just leave it alone. It's almost like there's this fear of change and the repercussions that will come, as if when we celebrated the first Black president in Barack Obama, many of us, myself included, kind of went to sleep a little bit. I was so pleased. No scandal, beautiful, and just a brilliant president who gave us things like the Obamacare that everyone loves today, even those who opposed him. And then suddenly, bam, it was over. And we were punished, basically, I feel, in this terrible demagogue that we have with us now, who's running again, trying to win the presidency. So it could be that, this fear of change, that the devil we know, and he's had some devilish things that he's done and continues to do and say, Ted Cruz, look, this is what we're used to. I guess we'll just stick with him instead of getting punished perhaps on the other side. I don't know if people are thinking it out that way, but sometimes that gives me pause.
Yeah, one of the things Dr. Carter, Colin Allred is up against is Texas is huge. 18 million voters in that state and trying to reach them. So one of the articles I read involving Colin, we went into Black barbershops and the Black community in Houston and introduced himself. Folks were like, hey, I wasn't voting at all. Now you come through, you've talked to me, I'm going to vote. So just getting, and he's been raising, I mean, serious money. You probably get his emails. I get them every 5 minutes. So he's competing, but he is in some ways fighting against this apathy, which is scary to me because it also says if these folks aren't going to vote for their Senate, they're not likely to vote for their president. And we know for Kamala Harris to win, we need 2008 Obama turnout amongst Black voters. What do you make of what's happening in Texas?
Well, I mean, look, I think Texas is a hard place. And I think Sharon hit something that's really important is that when people are used to not being able to have a real choice, when they see them, they're not excited by them. Because it's like, how many times have we been excited and just found ourselves, disappointed again? Colin Allred, I think, is really interesting. One, because, he's very telegenic, seems like a really nice guy. I got to see him speak once and I was like, who is this? But one of the things that made him really interesting is when he won his district, right? I mean, he said he would never run unless he lived in a place. And I think that made him really interesting. But like, Dallas and Houston, even though they're a few hours apart, might as well be different countries. And then when you think about Amarillo and you think about all the other places, San Antonio, these are very different kinds of populations of people. I think he has that appeal, but I think getting people to know who he is in a state that is as crowded with so many things happening both locally and nationally, he kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. I think Ted Cruz might win just by name recognition alone. He is objectively, I think a bad leader. I don't think a leader leaves people in a crisis, a weather emergency that in part he's responsible for, right? I mean, whether rightly or wrongly, you're the senator, you're the person that needs to help these people get the emergency assistance they need, not get on a plane to take your family to Cancun and be warm while the rest of us are freezing. So Colin Allred, I think, has a real opportunity here. I think if he doesn't get it this time, he may be in spitting distance the next time, because I do think that there is a movement in Texas. I know, people may not want to say it, but I don't know mate selection. I don't know how much that plays here. His wife is very fair. I don't know how, she identifies. That's not my business. But for some people, just the optic of it might seem a problem. I'm thinking about like Harold Ford when he was running in Tennessee for the Senate, right? Very similar, came from a familial legacy, right? And all of those things. But people were looking at his relationship to, alleged relationships with white women or fair-skinned women that made to some at first view, and that can push some people. And I'm not suggesting that's the only thing. I'm just suggesting that there might be other things at play for people, even beyond, kind of the racial thing. But I think you're absolutely right. If we can't get people in the booth for the top of the ticket, then the bottom of the ticket is really going to suffer. So I hope, even if people are unsettled, that they go, because this would be huge. We haven't had many Black senators, and definitely not from a place like Texas. This would be a big game changer for how people view that state in electoral politics moving forward.
Yeah, obviously qualified for the job. Ted Cruz, I wonder, Sharon, why is he running? He has this deal with iHeartRadio. He does this weekly podcast 3 times a week. $800,000 from that podcast has been transferred into a super PAC, since he can't have a second job. He can't be paid as a senator. Obviously setting himself up after he didn't become the president, didn't get into the cabinet to become the next, Fox News commentator, anchor, something. So you wonder why someone like him wants to occupy the seat. Is it just power? Because obviously his interests are elsewhere. We never see the man. The word on the street is that he spends more time working on that podcast and trying to build it up than he does working on the issues that are important to the citizens of the state of Texas.
Well, because I think, Areva, power, fame, narcissism is inescapable for some. And Ted Cruz would be the poster child of all of that. He has friends who you could also place in that bucket. But he reminds me of television people, anchors I worked with at once, who ceased to exist once their contract wasn't renewed, as if they had no other value. Even if they had been disrespected, salaries cut in half, barely making it. Some of them went on and became realtors. They would do both jobs, just anything to be seen by the public. And that's what Ted Cruz reminds me of. He never was there to serve people, his constituents. That's not what his life work was about. Not even there to protect his wife when Trump, didn't he call her ugly? I mean,
Yep.
just the filthiest
sure
thing. I
did.
believe he called his wife ugly. He said the father is the one that killed President Kennedy. So he doesn't really care about anything except staying out in front of people. Even those of us who despise him and wish he would have a seat or perhaps go on permanent vacation. I don't know. But this is why. He doesn't care about anything except remaining relevant and becoming the biggest propagandist, whether that's TV, podcast, that he can.
Yeah, clearly that seems to be where his interest is. He's trying to remake his whole persona to be this likable, relatable guy, getting ready to, launch his career in the media. But I see a tremendous opportunity here for Colin Allred, for the Democrats. And I hope the Democrats don't sleep on the potential, because oftentimes we have these close Senate races and we'll hear the candidate later say the party didn't believe this was a winnable race. They didn't give me the support. They didn't give me the backup. They didn't give me the, the ground, volunteers, the media ad money, all that we know. The fact that Colin Allred is within striking distance, and literally these polls got him one up, one down, depending on which poll you follow, is a remarkable feat that he's become such a formidable candidate in a state like Texas. So, hats off to you, Colin, for taking on Ted Cruz, because he is beatable. O'Rourke proved that he is beatable. May not be this time, but he is definitely beatable. And presumably, if we do what we need to do, it can be this time around. We're out of time. Thank you so much, Dr. Carter. Thank you, Sharon. I know you're going to stick around and talk about the media handling of the Tyre Nichols trial. We're going to go all in on the 5 officers charged in the beating death of Tyre Nichols. For KBLA Talk 1580.